Equipa sa Pla'y, diretso na sa dapat.
Animal mechanicals, we animal mechanical can.
Rex Mechanos Nagan!
Jednorog mechanoletacz!
From the makers of Lucid Chart.
We're so close to a breakthrough. I can feel it. We just need.
اعقل يا هذا وتعقل، اعقل يا هذا وتوكل،
اعقل يا هذا
وتعقل اعقل يا هذا وتوكل
اعقل يا هذا وتعقل اعقل يا هذا وتوكل
اعقل يا هذا وتعقل اعقل يا هذا وتوكل
لا ترهن نفسك بالآلة شغل تفكيرك كي تكمل لا العقل يفيد بلا علم فالعلم عماد المستقبل فاعقل يا هذا وتعقل اعقل يا هذا وتوكل
اعقل يا هذا وتعقل اعقل يا هذا وتوكل
The United Kingdom is a country.
And that country is made up of the countries of England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, all of which are countries.
So the word country is overused. But we're here to country talk about the country of England and the country of Scotland country.
Specifically their border.
Which is old.
And contested.
And surprising.
Our favourite.
Welcome to Map Men.
We're the men.
And here's the map.
Map men, map men, map men.
It all started hundreds of years ago when Roman Emperor Hadrian decided this part of Britain was worth it, but this part, probably not so much.
And so he built a wall, sending a message to any approaching army that if you want to attack us, you're going to have to place at least one hand on this stone and literally hop over.
South of the border became England, and north of the border became Scotland. Since Hadrian, the border between the two countries has ding-donged back and forth a bit, not least around this poor town, Berwick-upon-Tweed, which has swapped countries 14 times.
Although technically in England,
For now.
Berwick-upon-Tweed feels really Scottish. They read Scottish newspapers, their football team plays in the Scottish League, and their accent is a weird mix of Scottish and Geordie. Excuse me, will you say something?
Why, I'm indeed got what the what you hanging about?
Ugh.
People got so confused about which country Berwick was in that official declarations of war in the 19th century had to specify you are at war with England, Scotland and Berwick-upon-Tweed.
One particular war with Russia forgot to mention Berwick in the peace declaration, which means that Berwick was technically still at war with Russia until 1961. They undeclared war on each other in a ridiculous ceremony where the mayor of Berwick declared,
The good people of Moscow can now sleep soundly in their beds.
The Russians responded by not knowing anything about it.
The England-Scotland border remains significant today.
It's well known that the Scots hate the English, but the English have never understood why those backwards Celts are such a bunch of whinging morons.
Well, that's what you get with a border that has hundreds of years of history.
Hundreds, you say?
Hundreds, I say.
Try 400 million.
What? Tell me more.
I bloody well will. This is what the world looked like 500 million years ago.
Well, I'm no evolutionary biologist, but that looks like around the time the first grapulites and cephalopods were formed.
Exactly. But at this point,
England and Scotland are thousands of miles apart. The land set to spawn Sean Connery is here, and the land set to spawn Mr. Bean is here.
Mr. Bean was an alien.
the production company was English.
Well saved.
And about 400 million years ago, Avalonia and Laurentia collided together. Like this.
That dramatic collision formed the Scottish Highlands, once as tall as the Himalayas.
This map shows the border where they collided.
And this is the border today.
Ooh.
So, is it just a massive coinkydink that the line where the megacontinents crashed into each other is pretty much exactly where today's England-Scotland border is? Or are the rocks from 400 million years ago still shaping the identities of these countries?
After all, the rocks underneath us affect what plants can grow, what local animals can eat, what building materials.
Why is science's greatest strength the fact that it's always slightly wrong? How might improv help combat climate change?
7,117. Okay, it would be a short video if I just gave that one answer, but that's the number. According to the 2020 edition of Ethnologue, widely considered to be the closest thing we have to a directory of languages. But here's the catch. Languages are not separate, distinct things. They evolve, split, merge, fall out of use, and it's often difficult to say exactly where one language ends and another begins. Sure, it's clear that my English and another person's Mandarin are completely different languages. But what about my English and someone else's Scots, or someone else's Singlish, or someone else's rural Southern American English, which might not be understood by the Dowager of Downton Abbey? And it's not just about location either. There's a difference between the English I use here versus what I actually use when I'm talking to friends. And what about over time? Where does English start to become Middle English or Old English? At some point, it's different enough to get a new label, but there isn't a naturally occurring clean line. There's an old saying that a language is just a dialect with an army and a navy. Languages change to adapt to the needs of their speakers, and there are a few reasons for that. Maybe it's to provide new words for new concepts. Computer used to be the term for someone who was paid to sit and do calculations. Their job was to compute. They were a computer. When automated tools came along, they took on the name. Sometimes languages change to speed up communication. Going to wasn't always a marker for future tense. And saying, I'm going to start, makes no sense when taken literally. You can't go to start. Start is not a place. But the phrase going to became lexicalized. And then it turned into a word, gonna, and then I'm gonna became I'm a. That's a word in common use that's probably under 50 years old. Still English. Sometimes a language changes because people are trying to find an identity. The words we use help us fit in or to stand out. Language changes spread across populations. They act as markers of who you are and who your group is. If enough people change their pronunciation, their intonation, their word and grammar choices all together, you end up with a dialect. If that happens over and over and over and over for centuries, well, you might end up with a new language. Or you might end up with an old one falling out of use. Centuries of colonialism and globalization have encouraged the death of local languages, and even fairly major ones can be in trouble. Icelandic is spoken by more than 300,000 people. It's the national language of a European country. But it's not supported by iPhones or Android phones. If you speak Icelandic and you want to use a smartphone, so if you want to participate in modern life, you need to speak another language, probably English. Very little media is translated into Icelandic. Almost no one who moves to Iceland speaks it, which means that Icelandic youth sometimes just use English between each other as a first language. Unless deliberate efforts are made to keep it alive, even a national language like Icelandic could be at risk eventually. So yes, Ethnologue counts 7,000 languages based on fairly reasonable lines that they've decided on. Someone has to draw some line somewhere, so they do. But of those 7,000, 50 to 90% of them may well be functionally extinct by the end of the century. And while I'm sure there would be advantages to one global language, it's not just about communication. It's about access to culture, to history, to subtext, to the insights that can come from one language, explaining in a single word what would take another language 50. If you're watching this and thinking, doesn't matter too much, imagine how you'd feel if it was English that was endangered. And ask yourself if you'd be okay with the next generations only having translations of the works that you grew up with. If you want more linguistics, then my co-author Gresham McCulloch has a podcast called Lingthusiasm. The link is in the description and I recommend it.
We made USAA for homeowners who like being ready. That's why we have safety tips for things like fires.
ويحلق في الأجواء يغوص لأعماق الأشياء يجول بنا كي نتعلم هذا هو باص المدرسة نطرح موضوعا ونسأل نبحث عن تحليل عن حل نحاول بالعقل ونفهم طلاب ومدرسة باص 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 المدرسة باص 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 المدرسة ويحلق في هو باص المدرسة. باص 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 المدرسة. مدرسة. ويحلق في الأجواء يغوص لأعماق الأشياء يجول بنا كي نتعلم هذا هو باص المدرسة. نطرح موضوعا ونسأل نبحث عن تحليل عن حل نحاول بالعقل ونفهم طلاب ومدرسة. باص 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 المدرسة. باص 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 المدرسة. ويحلق في الأجواء يغوص لأعماق الأشياء يجول بنا كي نتعلم هذا هو باص المدرسة. باص 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 المدرسة. باص 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 المدرسة.
Over-the-shoulder trick shots are hard. Saving money on car insurance shouldn't be. $835 average savings for drivers who switch and save.
أنا المثلث في كل مكان وضعوني ابحثوا عني في كل مكان تجدوني. نصبت خيمة في البستان شكل الخيمة أيضا مثلث. عزفت موسيقى وألحان بأداة تدعى المثلث. سطح المنزل إشارات المرور قبعة المهرج منقار العصفور. هذا مثلث نجده في كل مكان فلنرسمه بخط القلم والألوان. أنا المثلث.
We don't speak to everyone in our lives in the exact same way. We speak to our bosses, to customers, and to strangers quite formally, and we speak to our friends and family more casually. We convey different aspects of ourselves through our speech, and so we change our way of speaking depending on the identity that we're trying to project. We do it, for the most part, unconsciously, and through history, getting it wrong could result in anything from slight awkwardness to death, depending on how badly you misjudged your speech and exactly who you were talking to at the time. What we say and how we say it matters, but registers aren't just for spoken language, they apply to the written word too. Now, there are people who believe all writing on the internet should follow the same standards as a business email. But chatting to a friend is very different to emailing your boss, and the way we write reflects that. Our online voice can have a wide variety of tones, and especially for folks who grew up with the internet, the need to convey tone means that there are fairly well agreed upon conventions. In standard written English, capital letters don't convey much actual information. They just show proper nouns and the beginning of sentences. And while that might make a paragraph easier to read, we don't flag those up at all when we speak. It's not necessary. So in informal conversations, those that feel like speaking, we don't need capital letters. But that means online communities could use capitals to convey something else that does appear in conversation. Tone. So all caps became shouting. Side note, put that text in a speech bubble and a hand-lettered font, and suddenly it's not shouting, it's just how comic books look. Context matters. Anyway, if all caps are shouting, lowercase is calm, normal conversation. Remove the punctuation, and you get this sort of aloof, don't really care tone that works well for deadpan humour and irony. Some people think all lowercase is lazy, but it often takes work on the part of those typing. Most smartphones auto-correct it. They capitalise proper nouns in the beginning of sentences for you. Turning that off, or more likely going back and undoing that capitalisation, takes effort, and that shows that it's actually meaningful and not just lazy. In fact, the rise of deliberate lowercasing for stylistic effect coincides with the rise of auto-capitalisation on smartphones. And on the other hand, people will sometimes capitalise the first letter of words for effect. That happened way before the internet. Winnie the Pooh's author A.A. Milne used that a long time ago, and fairly often in a way that seems quite relatable today. We can repeat characters to convey prosody, rhythm and sound through text. We can repeat exclamation marks for more emphasis. We can use question marks, not for questions, but for a rising tone that means we might be unsure about something, or that we want to hedge our bets about what we're suggesting, maybe. And reversing that, rhetorical questions can be marked by phrasing them as a question but not having a question mark, to show that there is no rising tone. And then there's the period, or the full stop in British English. Periods show falling tone, which is pronounced at the end of serious sentences, which is why so many people perceive the period as a marker of being very serious or angry. There's a difference between okay and okay, which is fine when everyone understands that tone. One of the most extreme examples is on Tumblr, where commas instead of periods and deliberate misspellings end up with cry typing, which, depending on who you talk to, is either a way to show emotional distress or a way to sarcastically show emotional distress. The conventions change fairly quickly. Now we don't have to laboriously type out text messages on old keypads. See you later doesn't appear anymore. There is no single correct way to write. There are standards and conventions and registers for different use, and all the varieties of internet speak are just other registers. They're different, sure, but they are consistent, and they're understood by those who use them. Just maybe don't cry type to your boss. If you've ever wondered why you get ominous, passive-aggressive ellipses at the end of text messages from usually older people, that and a lot of other tales of internet typography are in my co-author's new book, Gretchen McCulloch's Because Internet, is on sale July the 23rd, 2019. Links are in the description.
Your new home deserves Xfinity.
And this?
I like the snowflakes.
Also do taxidermy.
Wow.
Move with Xfinity and settle in with the best home Wi-Fi. Bring on the good stuff.
All I want